right, y'all. Rickey Smiley Morning Show. Hey, but it's the bottom of the hour, y'all. Jeff Johnson got 3 things you need to know. What up, Jeff?
Hey, good morning. How y'all feeling?
Man, blessed this morning. Good morning.
Man, listen, I got 3 things for you. The first thing, Rick, is I think as Americans, we're going to have to take a step back as it relates to our expectations around this coronavirus. Because I'm just hearing like crazy stuff in the midst of all this misinformation. And I just think there's some things we're going to have to understand. And one is that life is going to change for a lot of us. And many of us are going to have to pause so that we don't panic, even in our own minds, because these contraction numbers are going to scare people. And we just have no idea what they're going to look like because we have not had tests done. And I keep hearing crazy stuff like, man, ain't no black people got this. And I'm like, that's because ain't no black people got tested. Like, black people don't want to go get tested for sugar. They're black people that are not wanting to get tested for the coronavirus. Hell, our president hasn't gone to get tested for the coronavirus. And so as this testing happens and we see these contraction numbers come in, I think it's going to be really important for us as a country not to panic based on those initial numbers, but understand that containment and other tactics they're going to have to be used, they're going to be necessary. So whether it's schools that are going to be closed, the election is going to be impacted. You know, those of us that are doing events, whether it's South by or Coachella, hell, even the Olympics and the NBA, all of these things are going to be impacted. I think one of the things that I'm most concerned about, Rick, is whether or not there is how this administration is going to consider a stimulus package that's going to take into consideration whether it's payroll tax holidays or helping small businesses with employees that aren't going to be able to come to work.
Right.
Because the economy is going to be drastically impacted, and it's always small business owners, hourly workers, and others that are most impacted. So those are some of the things we're really going to have to pay attention to. One thing, some of you know that the Supreme Court is in session, and on Monday they decided that they were going to make a decision, Rick, on that whether or not juvenile offenders can receive life in prison.
Right.
And what they're deciding is this whole term of incorrigible, right? So there's several cases that they're looking at, and they literally are trying to decide if someone who is under 18 that commits a crime is merely immature as opposed to incorrigible. And like for some of y'all that are like, well, what's the definition they're using? Like immature is not fully developed, right? Or showing, having an emotional or intellectual development appropriate to someone that is a child. Incorrigible means that you're not able to correct behavior or tendencies. It cannot be improved or reformed. And even that is problematic for me, Rick, because if we are saying, first of all, the car rental industry understands this better than anybody else. You know that you cannot rent a car in the United States of America before you're 25. Do you know why?
Why?
The amygdala. The amygdala is the part of the brain that ultimately makes decisions in moments of crisis. And the amygdala is not fully formed until your early to mid-20s, which means your decision-making process, no matter who you are, is seldom developed. Your full decision-making process, especially during crisis, which is where we get this whole notion of fight or flight, until your mid-20s, which is why you can't rent a car until then, because they understand the brain.
Right.
How in the hell are you going to tell me that a 15-year-old or 16-year-old or 14-year-old is incorrigible when the very part of the brain that helps make some of those decisions is not fully developed? And so I'm deathly afraid of what the Supreme Court is going to do, because the moment that you say that a child doesn't have the ability to change is the moment that you have demonized that child.
Right.
And spit in the face of the very science that determines what makes humans human and the brain. So y'all, please pay attention to this, because you know that in so many cases, it's going to affect a lot of our young people. The last thing is, Rick, before I get out of here, is many of us saw the results from last night's what people are calling Super Tuesday 2. Vice President Biden won Michigan handily, got Missouri, got Mississippi, and Idaho, while Bernie Sanders was able to lock down only one state. And we're still waiting for another state to come in. We're still waiting for the final in Washington to come in. This is a really interesting point, Rick, because I hear some people in the Democratic Party saying this is over and Bernie Sanders should just stop. I'm hearing, obviously, Bernie's supporters saying they're a long way from 1,991 votes. And so I think, listen, Rick, I think Bernie Sanders deserves the right to see this thing through till the end. I think the question is, how do they do it?
Right.
And so this is a moment where I think both sides have to say, listen, while it may look like, based on the math, that there may be a presumptive winner, Bernie Sanders so fundamentally disagrees with Joe Biden that he actually owes it, I think, to those that support him, that he keeps going until the convention. The question just is, will they keep trying to throw grenades at each other, or will they simply state their case and allow the American people to make a decision? That is going to so impact whether they're able to be successful against Donald Trump in a general election. And that is the thing that both Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and Nate Cruz are going to have to decide. Because if they go hard, Rick, all the way into the convention, then they damage each other going into a general election. Right. And for all those whose sole purpose is beating Donald Trump, that doesn't make sense. So we'll see what happens, Rick. Those are three things I got for y'all. Y'all can hit me at Jeff's Nation on all social media. Y'all have a great Wednesday. And I think I'm going to talk to y'all tomorrow.
There it is. Hey, man, appreciate you, Jeff.
All right, brother.
Yes,
thanks,
sir.
y'all.
Bernie Jenkins got the church announcements coming up next. You don't want to miss it. Rickey Smiley Morning Show.
Rickey Smiley.